Good evening. Welcome to our Gifted and Talented and Supplemental Services Showcase this evening. My name is Meredith Thomas. I am the Gifted and Talented Specialist here in Holmdel, and I'm going to give you a quick overview of what our Gifted and Talented Services in Holmdel look like. And I'm going to give you a sneak peek of where we are headed in the future with our program. So before we jump in, I do want you to take a look at that green slide on the slide deck that I shared with you. One thing that we've learned over the past year with all of these webinars and Zoom meetings, et cetera, is that 90% of participants typically multitask while they are engaging in these webinars. And something like 75% of those people who are in these webinars tend to stop listening after about 27 minutes or so. So I've decided to try and accommodate both of those statistics tonight in this presentation, beginning with the text that is on that green slide. If you click on that blue hyperlink, you will see access to my resources. They are all on a spreadsheet. And if you take a look at that spreadsheet on the bottom, you're going to see, first of all, these are the instructions right here. But there's the little light bulb on the bottom. If you click on that, you're going to see a whole library of resources that are going to help you to supplement your child's education at home. There's plenty of digital resources, videos, books, and organizations to support gifted children and teach you all about gifted and talented education and fantastic, helpful tips and tricks that you can access, including some former webinars that I've done as well. So I actually would encourage you to take a look at some of those resources. If you're going to be multitasking anyway, I invite you to check out some of those resources in that spreadsheet. And also, I've made this document editable, so all of you can add your own ideas on this spreadsheet if you think of something that you found particularly handy and useful, that you think families and our community in Holmdel could learn more about gifted and talented. I invite you to add those resources to this document as well. And so with that, I'm going to jump right back into this presentation. And I'm going to begin by describing what our continuum of services looks like in Holmdel. So we have services that we provide to students right in their regular classrooms, and then we have services that we provide outside of the regular classroom setting. So I'm going to go through those. For the regular classroom services, the push-in enrichment model is where I go visit those classes and I provide those students with a hands-on interactive activity that promotes critical thinking skills and some divergent thinking skills. It gets these kids thinking really creatively and engaging in some authentic activities. It's open to all students. It's not just students that are identified for services, and it's right in your child's classroom. The other thing that we do in Holmdel that is concentrated to a slightly smaller group of students is something that we call pull aside or small group differentiation. Differentiation is basically the educator's jargon that describes slight differences or modification to some kids' experience in the classroom to make the learning more relevant to those kids. So that would be where I would pull a small group of students aside and work on something a little bit more maybe rigorous for those students who need that service. And it does support them in their classrooms. Next is learning contracts, which is basically something where it's a team effort. I work with the child's teacher and we hone in on specific skills that the child might be in need of a little bit of support, but also these learning contracts are developed for children who are advanced in a particular topic. So if a teacher is teaching something in their class, and you have a student who is particularly good at that topic, and it wouldn't really be a good use of their time to engage in that particular lesson because they already know it, that would be a great candidate for something like this, where I would work with that teacher and say, all right, this kid already knows this information. Let's see other ways that we can support that student instead. And I will develop with the teacher a more personalized guide for the child so that they can be a little more independent and self-guided in their learning, but of course with the support of the teacher and myself. And then the instructional support and enrichment plan and supplemental studies are for students who are identified in need of those services in the gifted and talented continuum. So that is a very small percentage of students that would be eligible for this particular type of service, although it doesn't completely, um, uh, it's not eliminated as a possibility for children as needed. But the instructional support and enrichment plan is basically a skeleton, a little outline of specific skills and thinking styles, I'll call them, that children who have been identified are known to have. And we know what types of activities and topics would be very helpful to that particular student. And again, it's just a more tailored service for that student so that they're really getting the most out of what they're doing right in their classroom. Outside the classroom, I work with students on independent study or passion projects as needed. I work with the teachers and provide them with training and give them information about the nature and needs of gifted children, the way that they can best meet those kids' needs. And I'm always available as a support for those teachers. And then I do some cross-curricular planning and curriculum compacting, which is where we take something that, for example, is taught in two different classes, and we find a way of consolidating it so that children with advanced abilities are able to learn that skill in one of those two classes and then use the time in the other class to do something a little bit more relevant to what that child needs. And then finally, for identified students only, there is a pull-out component to our gifted and talented services that is offered to students that are in need of that service. It's usually a very small percent, about 5 to 7% of the students that would be pulled out. This year, it's once a week or so. We work together on a specific project, and I work with those kids in a separate classroom setting. If you want to learn more about what types of students need this type of service, I do have a separate webinar. I'll put a little shameless plug in for that towards the end of this one. So for next year, we have some awesome news. I'm very excited to announce that we will have 2 full-time gifted and talented teachers. That is really, really exciting. It is exactly what this district needs. And that is actually going to really support what we are doing for these kids. It's going to allow us to offer those pull-out services to those identified students to twice per week, which is fantastic because we can then use one session to really dive into accelerated content for those students. And we can use the other session to work on affective skills that those kids need. There is push and enrichment that will be increased to once per month per teacher within the district with our 2 full-time GT teachers, which is great because it's more face time with the kids for myself as a GT specialist, and then of course whoever my partner will be. We are hiring for that person right now, so this just gives us more time with the kids. It'll give us enhanced enrichment services and of course more training for the classroom teachers with 2 of us working together as a team. So I just want to really quick explain what the pull-out program is and what it is not, because I know this is a frequently asked question. So I'm going to explain what we do in our program. What I do is work with the students on some skills that they actually don't get as very bright learners. So most average students have to work really hard. They need to do their homework. They need to do the assignments and activities in order to help them process the information that they're learning in school. And it actually teaches them how to learn, and it teaches them that productive struggle, which is a very important life skill. When you have a child that is a rapid learner, that is accelerated in school, that child can be very successful without putting the effort in. And the problem with that is, as this child gets older and starts facing more difficult situations, more challenging schoolwork, etc., the child has not learned how to cope with failure. The child has not learned how to take notes, for example, how to manage their time, how to do homework, all of those very crucial executive functioning skills. And so we by not offering children the opportunity to acquire those skills, we kind of set them up to fail. So my role in working with those children in that pull-out program is to introduce them to activities and assignments that are intended to develop those study skills and also develop their affective skills. So the study skills we work on would be things like a productive struggle, keeping organized, coping with failure, things of that nature, how to organize your notes, how to plan your homework, all of those sorts of things. And then the affective skill development that we work on, again, it goes hand in hand with the personality and sort of mannerisms of children with giftedness. So we work on skills like collaboration. Sometimes kids who are really rapid learners have a hard time partnering with other kids in the class. So this is an opportunity for us to talk it out and learn consciously what it is like to partner with another student, collaborate. It teaches them self-awareness. It teaches them self-regulation. And also it's an opportunity in that pull-out program to provide those students with a safe space where they can connect with students who think similar to the way that they do. So they can share interests that perhaps their chronological peers might not have an interest in. And it gives them that emotional support and just kind of knowing that they have students that they can work with and they can talk to in that safe environment at that same level. I just want to be clear that what the pull-out program is not would be sort of that extra work or that busy work, more of the same, more of the same. We don't do any of that in our pull-out. And it is most certainly not socializing. So at this point, I'm going to give you a shameless plug and show you some of the things that I do in my classroom with my students. At Village School, we are working on things like how to record data, how to read the data, how to follow directions, all really important things to learn to do. The photo that you see in the middle of the page there is I'm working with students who are both in the classroom and remote. And in my hands, you see a little packet of seeds. I'm showing them how to plant clover in this experiment. The kids actually do the hands-on part of it, but we're working through how to read those directions and follow them step by step so that we get the outcome that we were hoping for. The other things, some of the other stuff that these kids have been doing, they created their own mock civilization. They used an interactive digital globe and dropped little plot points on the map to show their classmates where they would want their civilization to be. They gathered data about that location. They thought about the staple crop that they would want to grow. They thought about what the traditional clothing would be, what the celebrations would be. They came up with a math system. So they really embraced the idea of what their own civilization would look like if they ran the world. And then the picture that's on the right-hand side is an example of one of the activities that we did to teach the kids how to read data. So we did this in the form of a little amazing escape room where the kids had to read graphs and data and be able to decipher what that meant. And then they were able to unlock some digital locks and break out of a little amazing escape room. At Indian Hill School, we dig a little bit deeper. We start tapping into global collaboration and the importance of listening and the importance of connecting with people that are more knowledgeable than we are. And that might mean that perhaps it's not somebody right in our own classroom, but globally a little bit more. We are reaching beyond the walls of our classroom. We are also learning to collect data and analyze it. So it's a little bit different than knowing how to look at a graph or a chart. It goes deeper. We're learning how to analyze that, think critically, and make some conclusions, ask some questions about our data. And then, of course, task management. We're trying to learn how to manage our time. We're trying to learn how to organize a long list of things that these kids need to do so that they can accomplish tasks without procrastinating and getting all the information that they need in a tidy manner that they can collaborate with their peers on. The photo you're looking at on the left is our class boiling water for a solution that we are pouring into this test tube. Obviously, I'm handling the boiling water, but the kids were preparing what you're looking at in this center image here. And what you are seeing is on the left-hand side, these two test tubes have plants in them that are in our classroom. And on the right-hand side, it's the same plant, but these are growing on the International Space Station right now. And about every 45 minutes to an hour, there's a photo taken of both of our plants, and the kids are trying to see if the root systems of legumes can nodulate under the stress of space. So this is an image of what you're looking at. And then the Zoom call that you see on the right, and there's Mrs. Thomas right there. This is a panel of principal investigators, astronauts, other teachers worldwide, other kids worldwide. We're actually working with a class that's from Romania. There's classes there from California, Canada, Mexico, and France. And we all, once a week, jump on a Zoom call and we compare our notes with this image that you see in the middle. And we have an opportunity to let our students ask questions directly to the astronauts and the scientists, and they have an opportunity to engage in some real authentic conversations and some really authentic learning in order to boost those skills. So moving on, I'm going to really quick touch on what we do to identify our students. But there is more information about this on a separate presentation. So I'm going to go real quick and just kind of get through the main points. Basically, every year we review the data. It's based on multiple tests. We look at a bunch of different scores, and we make decisions in the form of a committee. A committee will meet together and review that data. It is free from bias. We use anecdotes and work samples so that we consider the whole child, not just the numbers. And we do follow the law that's laid out in New Jersey. And I just want to touch on that real quick, too, because it is a new law. Last summer, Governor Murphy signed into law, last January of 2020, Governor Murphy signed into law the Strengthening Gifted and Talented Education Act in New Jersey. It is hyperlinked in the slides, so if you'd like to take a look at it more closely, go ahead and take a look at it right in the slides there. The gist of it is that the law codifies best practice, and it lays it out for school districts to follow. The most important things for parents to glean is that the state now requires that schools have services from kindergarten through 12th grade. Our identification procedures need to be transparent and consistent, and there is more accountability for the schools. So with that, I'm going to just quickly give you an overview of what the services look like from kindergarten through 12th grade. So in kindergarten through second grade, we offer those more broad enrichment services. That's the push-in enrichment, the pull-aside, small group instruction, and the additional classroom support as needed. This way, every child has an opportunity to expand their creativity. We don't actually formally identify children as gifted and talented prior to third grade, simply because we want to make sure that this is an equitable process, and we want to make sure that students all equally have an opportunity to access enrichment and access the supplemental instruction that is appropriate for that child. Um, and then third through sixth grade, it's exactly the same as K to 2. We still offer that push-in enrichment. We still offer that pull-aside small group instruction, the additional support as needed, as I covered earlier. But then we add that pull-out component in between third grade and sixth grade. Those are the years when it's really crucial to develop those skills in those kids. And the services benefit kids the most between the ages of 9 and 13. So we do try to really hone in that pull-out instruction between third grade and sixth grade. And then when they get to the middle school, we expand on that a little bit more. It is a mentoring independent study program for the middle school students. They are partnered with an advisor, and they work on a passion project, something that they work on. It's a little more self-guided, and those teachers are there to help them as mentors and advisors. And then the high school has advanced placement courses at the moment. We are exploring the possibility of adding more services to those high school students in the coming years. But for now, we do have those advanced placement courses. And so, speaking of years to come, I'm going to give you a really quick overview of what it will look like in the next, hopefully, 3 to 5 years or so in Holmdel, in the world of gifted and talented education. So one of the things that we are exploring at the moment is something called the Schoolwide enrichment model. And what that is it's an evidence-based model of teaching and learning where the students are pursuing a personal interest and they get to develop their own personal talent. It is guided by a curriculum, so there is a framework in place so that students aren't just sort of floundering, but the teachers are more like mentors, and the students are clustered with like-minded peers. And in this case, what I'm talking about in like-minded peers is students that are interested in the same sort of topics are clustered together, and they're partnered with a teacher who has the same interest. And then they will work on an authentic, and actually there's a lot of research behind this, but there is authentic projects. We call it the total talent development model. And it looks very similar to like a 20% time type of project, if you have heard from Google, that type of thing. So for example, if a student has an interest in something really specific, like for example, sewing. If a student is curious about sewing and they're interested in learning more about it, they would be partnered with other students who want to learn more about sewing, and they would be paired with a mentor teacher who's also really interested in sewing. So the teacher isn't there to provide direct instruction on how to sew, but more to be sort of a role model and a guide for those students. The students would be pursuing a authentic project that they would be working on, and it is actually uh, they would be following their own questions. So asking questions like, how when do you need to learn to sew? How do you sew something like a saddle? How do you make window treatments? What sort of skills do I need to learn in order to scale an outfit down from something I can wear into something my doll can wear, for example? These are just sort of the questions that the students would pursue. And then, of course, that would be the type of thing where the curriculum would be able to guide them. So there's a lot of math in there. It sounds like they'd have to learn something like maybe measurement. Maybe they would be pursuing a project on period costumes, and then they would have to investigate the social studies component to it. And it pulls in, if they're going to write an instructional manual, how to write directions for their partners within this group. How do you sew this outfit? Well, now you have to learn how to write solid instructions, and that's a language arts skill. So it's a really good way of pulling in that cross-curricular study. But more importantly, it gives students a chance to really be who they are and learn about the things that make them really happy. And the research that supports this model does show that the intervention is effective through the enrichment model. So students who might be struggling in an area will actually improve through the school-wide enrichment model, which, I mean, makes sense. You know, if you have a student that's not really good at math, but they want to learn how to sew, well, now they have motivation to understand the math, and they have something tangible that they can learn the math, like a piece of fabric or the scissors, the rulers, the things that they're holding, the things that they're participating in and doing. They're experiencing the math, and then they're more likely to understand it, and they will improve. The second thing that has been proven with this model is the improved teacher and student engagement. I already kind of mentioned to you the importance of the student engagement, and how important it is for students to be themselves and learn skills that they're interested in learning. But on the flip side of that, you're going to be putting students in a situation where they have a teacher who's really passionate about a particular topic, and it actually slows down the teacher burnout, because teachers are really thrilled to be able to share their craft. They're happy to be able to share a hobby and teach something that is equally important to them as it is to the students. So it is a great way of increasing engagement and morale in the whole school. And then it's also authentic project-based learning. And those are all really important. The jobs of the future are not set in stone yet. We as teachers don't know what jobs we are training these kids for, because we have such a rapidly changing world. So the importance of project-based learning in this day and age in school cannot be understated. It's really, really crucial that these students learn things like critical thinking and problem solving and real pragmatic solutions to problems, asking questions, learning how to solve those problems, and maybe, you know, learning how to collaborate in a world where they're going to be working in the future. And those are skills that they can acquire by project-based learning in a way that they can't acquire those skills in any other way. So we would like to implement this school-wide enrichment model over the next 3 to 5 years. It's going to entail some training for the teachers so that they understand what this model is. And it will be something that would happen fairly regularly. So arbitrarily, just for example, I would pick maybe the first Friday of the month or something like that, where that particular day would be considered enrichment day. And that would be what we do for the entire school day. And then the rest of the week would be, or the rest of the month, whatever the cadence is that we have to establish, that would be what you know as school to be today. So we're not talking about a complete overtake of the entire system, but definitely it is an important adjustment, I think, in the future of education. So that is the school-wide enrichment model. And I want to thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I hope that this was helpful to you. I hope that you were able to take a look at some of those resources and add some of your own on there. If you have any questions about the identification, the nature, the needs, the characteristics of gifted and talented children, I invite you to check out my other webinar, which is entitled Exploring diverse needs, gifted, talented, and creative children. It is actually one of the green links in the resource document that I shared with you. I also invite you and your children to join my enrichment Google Classroom. I'm actually already following the school-wide enrichment model on that Google Classroom. I'm posting new assignments and activities on there all the time. So I hope this was helpful, and I invite you to ask any questions that you may still have. Have a great evening. Thanks again for tuning in.